From Bat LZ64, where would the Divas division be today if it were not for Trish Stratus? The easy answer would be to say that if it wasn't Trish, it would have been somebody else. But then again, I don't think there was another diva at the time that had all the qualities that Trish brought to the table. You think about Torrie Wilson and Stacy Keibler, who only had the look. You think about Jacqueline and Molly Holly, who only had the wrestling ability, whereas Trish was the complete package. So I think that Trish set a standard that no other diva could have set at the time. And without that, it's hard to tell how different the division would be today. I do think that if it wasn't for Trish, WWE would have never tried so hard to replicate Trish. And I definitely think that without Trish, there would be no Diva Search, which means no Maryse, no Michelle McCool, no Candice Michelle, no Bella Twins, no Eva Marie. And if that's the case, then Trish Stratus really was the best thing to happen to the Divas division. From TheJazzFanForever, who is your favorite diva besides Trish and Lita? Melina. In fact, I always liked Melina over Trish and Lita. Even back in 2005, when I thought wrestling was real, I still rooted for the heel Melina to kidnap Trish. I always thought Melina had more charisma than Trish, was way hotter than Trish, and I would even say she became a better wrestler than Trish. From MegaKingofshadows, how do you feel about Melina's last year with the WWE? I thought it was one of the weirdest declines that I've ever seen for a diva. When she came back in 2010, she was without question the #1 diva in the company, and then randomly, out of nowhere, she gets demoted to jobber status. I never understood why they misused her so much at the time, despite being the most credible diva on the roster, but apparently it had to do with snubbing Trish at WrestleMania, which, if that's the reason, then unfortunately, it's her own fault. From SonOf Secoria, do you think Melina will ever come back to the WWE? I think there's a chance she might make a cameo for a Raw reunion type of show, but as far as a full-time return, unfortunately, it's too late for that already. Do you think Brooke Tessmacher should go back to the WWE? That's one of the reasons why I'm hoping that TNA goes out of business, just so Brooke and Velvet can come back to the WWE and have a few dream matches before it's too late. You could argue that it wouldn't be the same thing and they'd just be watered down by PG standards, but I still think she could make it work. From Lapada462, do you think Torrie Wilson was underrated and deserved to be women's champion? I always did feel that Torrie Wilson never really got the proper run as a wrestler that she deserved. She was always just a valet, eye candy, supermodel. I always thought that Torrie should have had the push that WWE gave Candice Michelle. It never made sense to me how Candice Michelle came to be women's champion, but Torrie Wilson never did. Apparently, she was supposed to be the first Divas champion before her injury, which would have been perfect. I do think that Torrie may go down in history as the greatest diva to never be champion. From 3724 Nat, could Kelly Kelly come back as a heel? I would have said no, but then I look at what Taryn Terrell did in TNA, and I think Kelly Kelly could work that same gimmick pretty well. But I don't think WWE would bring her back as a heel. I think they'd still try to push her as the face of the division next to Eva Marie. There's your next Trish and Lita right there. From Jake Salisbury, who do you think was more valuable to the division, Eve Torres or Kelly Kelly? Kelly was a more valuable face of the division, and Eve was a more valuable character. So I think they were both valuable in their own way. If I had to pick one over the other, I think Eve was starting to surpass Kelly Kelly toward the end of her career. So I think she could have been bigger than Kelly if she had stuck around longer. But I think Kelly reached a higher ceiling in the division than Eve did. From Jarvese Mitchell, how many seasons will Total Divas hold up for? As long as WWE wants it to hold up. E isn't going to cancel the show as long as it's drawing some of their best ratings. So that means it's up to WWE how long they want to keep the show running. If I had to guess, I'd say that the last season of Total Divas will be the last season that the Bellas are with WWE. Because let's face it, that show is nothing without them. Larrell Lewis, how would you book a feud between Paige, AJ, Kaitlyn, and a returning Mickie James? A perfect angle for this feud would have been last year after Night of Champions, when Paige broke up with AJ and replaced her with Alicia Fox. Instead of Alicia Fox, how cool would it have been if she had brought back Kaitlyn instead, and they could have done an angle where Kaitlyn and Paige become friends with each other to get back at AJ for being a horrible friend to them. And then they can do a story where they challenge AJ to a tag team match at a pay-per-view, but only if she can find a new best friend. But since every diva on the roster hates AJ, she gets rejected by everyone until she comes out one week and says she found someone that she has a lot in common with, and there enter Psycho Mickie. Bam! Thought of that in 2 minutes. From Cody Rocket, what divas do you see returning to the WWE? I think Eve and Maryse have come pretty close to returning a few times, and both of them still have connections with the WWE. So if any diva was to make a full-time comeback, I think it would be one of those two. Otherwise, I think any diva that WWE would have wanted back would have been back by now. From the Poke Deck, will WWE ever put Laycool back together? I don't see Laycool making a full-time return, but I think they might be a reunion at some point, whether it's a one-off appearance or a short-term comeback for a storyline to put over a new diva. From Colleague Woodson, how do you see Naomi in 2 years? I see Naomi teaming back with Cameron eventually. Unfortunately, I don't see any scenario where Naomi becomes Divas Champion, as long as Charlotte, Sasha, Becky, Bayley, and Paige are dominating the division. How do you see the Divas Division in 2 years? In 2 years, the current roster will be fully replaced by NXT, meaning any diva that didn't come from NXT will either be released or relegated to a jobber, or just stuck on Total Divas where that's the only show they're going to show up on. That's if Triple H has it his way, which is one of the many reasons why I'm hoping that Vince McMahon lives until he's 200 years old. From Ryan Lodewick, what is your fantasy strip poker match? I think strip poker has a maximum of 7 players, right? Alright, so if that were the limit, I'd pick Nikki Bella versus Melina versus Velvet Sky versus Brooke Tessmacher versus Eve versus Candice Michelle versus Mickie James. If there was another Divas Championship, who would be the next 5 champions? The first 5 Diva Tag Team Champions should be the Bellas. Obviously, they have to be the first champions. Then they could drop the belts to the team of Trish and Lita, and then they'll drop the belts to the BFFs, Summer Rae and Sasha Banks, and then they can drop it to the heel Funkadactyls, since that's probably the only way either of them will ever have a title. And then the Bellas can win it back again to set the record. From I Am Calum King, which diva has the most potential in WWE and which diva has the least? The diva with the most untapped potential is Summer Rae. She could easily be the next Maryse if pushed properly, and the diva with the least potential, well, I don't know if you can call him a diva, but WWE tries to convince us he is, TaMANa, because really, what potential does he have? They've already used him for the only thing he's good for. He's like 40 years old. He's not going to get any less useless anytime. From John Wynn, what would be one thing that would make you like TaMANa? It took me over 2 years to think of an answer to this question, but I think the only thing that could make me tolerate TaMANa is if they repackaged them with a different gimmick. Something cool, something like an Undertaker or Kane type of character. You know, give him a cool attire, put a mask on him, make him spit fire, just give him a really cool gimmick. But then again, that'd be a waste of a great gimmick. So you know what? Just make him the bunny. That will make me like him more. From Bat LZ64, would you rather divas have longer matches or gimmick matches? I think gimmick matches would draw more interest to the division than just longer matches, because in order for fans to be invested in longer matches, there'd have to be better storylines, and there's no guarantee that's going to happen in this scenario. So That's why it's better to do gimmick matches, because with the gimmick matches, the gimmick itself is enough of a reason for the fans to be invested regardless of a story. Fans are going to care more about the Divas if they're allowed to have Royal Rumble, Steel Cage, Money in the Bank, Hell in a Cell, Elimination, Bra and Panty matches again, more than they care about a random 20-minute Paige versus TaMANa match. From Michael Brajas, why do heel divas have longer title reigns than face? I think because of the dynamic of building a dominant monster heel for the next rising babyface to overcome works a lot better than the watered down babyface overcoming the odds at every pay-per-view. Although ironically, heels are booked better as challengers than as champions. From Aaron Wesley, what is your dream Survivor Series elimination match? My ultimate dream team of all time would be the Bellas, Melina, Maryse, and Summer Rae. I would put them in a Survivor Series match against AJ, TaMANa, Layla, Paige, and Charlotte, just so Team Nikki can completely obliterate them, since Nikki is, after all, undefeated at Survivor Series.